Movie lovers and cinephiles around the world, thank you for joining me on another edition of Andy Takes On. I'm the Andy in question, and before we get started, I just want to thank you for having tuned in to that epic live show that we did about a week ago on Valentine's Day. I want to thank you so much for having subscribed and shared, and just to remind you that the competition is still running until the end of the month. And in that competition, the person who has subscribed and invited the most new subscribers wins chocolate, my book, and some bookmarks. So please keep that rolling. But as we're saying, February is the month of love, and having done that epic show, I'm grateful to you. And in the spirit of this thing called love, in the words of Celine Dion, I'm reviewing one of the most iconic romantic movies of all time, and that is Titanic. Now, arguably the greatest love story ever told, in the 24 years since its 1997 release, Titanic has been, quite frankly, a Titanic success. Now, it launched the careers of Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet and got that Celine Dion song stuck in our head for ages and became the first movie in history to hit the $1 billion in revenue mark, right? Not only that, it remained the highest grossing movie of all time until about 23 years later, when in 2010, is that how numbers work? No, 13 years later, when in 2010, a little movie that you might have heard of called Avatar came and toppled it from that position. What's significant about this achievement, you may ask, is that that movie, Avatar, was directed by James Cameron, whose name you might recognize because he directed, Terminator 2, Alien, and another little movie you might have heard of called Titanic. This man is a powerhouse, a genius when it comes to cinema. It's like he's running a $1 billion relay by himself. But Titanic might have been his greatest trick. Not only because it was such a good movie, but because he threw us off the scent of what the movie was really about. And I'm going to tell you all about it because, as you know, I'm here about the movie. I don't know if this even counts as a spoiler, but the boat sinks in the end. You know this, right? Okay? Newborn babies, newborn babies are born knowing this, and that's the reason why they cry. So the movie isn't about how a ship found itself on the ocean floor, but about the lives of the people on board. It opens up to footage of real-life Titanic passengers as they embark on that doomed voyage. Now, this plays out to a masterfully crafted musical score that sets an appropriately melancholy and romantic tone. Melancholy! Look it up. It's a big word. Still trying to wrap my tongue around it. But anyway, because the next scene is literally the most futuristic diving equipment. Now, think about... what was it like? It was like the Nebuchadnezzar in the Matrix, right? Now, it's the most futuristic equipment that you've ever seen, so it immediately subverts your expectations. Is this a movie about the past or the future? Is it about deep sea or outer space? James Cameron draws us into the world of Titanic subtly by first hinting at it and then taking us through the wreckage, passing through signs that there were once people here, a chandelier here, a pair of broken glasses there, a broken piano, like remnants of a civilization lost to time. Now, the hints become flashbacks, and before you know it, you're immersed in the account of a now 100-year-old rose. Not a flower, but a person, because this movie is about people. Now we go back aboard the Titanic, but this time we meet a young Rose and her entourage. They're all first-class passengers who are directly contrasted with Jack Dawson, who is a reckless, penniless vagabond who only manages to get onto the ship through a lucky hand of poker. Now Rose, who is soon to be married, views her engagement ring as the world's tiniest handcuff, and she's buckling under the pressure of society in general, and Mommy Dear in particular, who want her to become a kept woman. Now, their worlds collide on the night when she decides to take her life and Jack swoops in to save her. Now, this also marks the first time that he's arrested because of her, and for me, that was a clear red flag, but I digress. Now, this chance encounter affords Rose a peek into Jack's worldview and into his world, and it gives her a new lease on life. Now, as you can imagine, her mother and fiance, did I mention she's got a fiance? Because she's got a fiance, and neither of them are happy about this. Now, when they finally, that is Jack and Rose, decide to damn the consequences and be together regardless, fate puts another hurdle in their way in the form of the iceberg that sinks the Titanic. Talk about doomed love. So here's the thing, will they survive? And if so, what will life look like after? The answers to these questions unfold as Rose narrates the story like that guy who narrated Dragon Ball Z. Next time on the Titanic. All right, so in terms of the themes and the tones, there is just so much that's happening thematically here. Because of the period in which the movie is set, the women's rights, or rather the lack thereof,
like I said, women and machinery do not mix.
But the purpose of university is to find a suitable husband.
Well, you don't want to stay out here with the women, do you?
are a major theme. The ship itself also functions as an allegory or a cross-section of society, or the world as a whole, with the first-class passengers being the first world and third-class, third-class passengers, not third world, third-class citizens, and they hardly rank higher than the rats when it comes to the grand scheme of things. Now, there are also characters whom the movie doesn't do a deep dive do a deep dive into their personalities and motivations because they serve more as expressions of certain themes, such as the builder of the ship, Mr. Andrews, who obviously sounds like a handsome man with a nice name. He says that Titanic is all the lifeboat you're going to need. We've got the crew of the ship, who demonstrate the disparity in the ways that people of different social classes and social standing are treated. With your lower your standing, the worse your treatment. And the captain of the ship. Now, obviously, this is the man on whom, fittingly, the gravity of the voyage's failure weighs the most heavily. And we know that he didn't take it well because he went down with the ship on purpose. And then there is love. Now, whether it's director James Cameron's love for the ship, which is depicted in how meticulous he is in recreating every aspect, or whether it's how much the English love their tea, which, no joke, is a real theme in this movie.
Well, I'm off.
Or a love for status or influence, all these form the backdrop for the love story of Jack and Rose. So let's meet them, shall we? Rose Dawson. Played by Kate Winslet in what would be her breakout role, Rose is a woman conflicted by the choices before her. Love on the one hand and security on the other. Her time with Jack helps her to come out of her shell.
Sorry. You just seem like, kind of an indoor girl.
And into her own. Now, watching her be at times exasperated by and at other times enthralled by him, and the chemistry that they share is a large part of the thrill of this movie. Fun fact, Rose's performance, Kate's performance as Rose, also clearly inspires Zach Galifianakis, try saying that one time fast, just one time, in the movie Due Date.
Pollard, what are you doing? You're acting like a girl out there. What are you, a girl or something?
So what are you, an artist or something?
Jackson, come on, man. You got to get yourself together. What are you, a girl or something?
So what are you, an artist or something?
Get in the back seat, Private. What are you, a girl or something?
So what are you, an artist or something?
Rose also subtly conveys a woman's lack of agency, as many things that are happening to her. And in case that wasn't clear, there are so many scenes of events unfolding as she simply stares. In fact, she stares so much that sometimes it feels like a video game about staring. Cal Hawkley, played by Billy Zane, and he had to answer the question, why does Drake look so familiar? Cal is Rose's fiancé and the man who believes in making his own luck, i.e. making it rain, baby. A young Wayne in the making. Anyway, he goes from annoying to menacing to murderous to comical.
What could possibly be funny?
I put the diamond in the coat. I put the coat on her!
And is well cast as the villain of this movie because it helps to have somebody to loathe, as soap operas have taught us over the years. And then we have Jack Dawson. It's an open secret in Hollywood that Leo's Oscar was way, way overdue. The Titanic is an early example of why. Okay, his performance was a tour de force, where he plays the character with humor, with depth, and conviction. I mean, just look at how his face subtly conveys his thoughts in these two scenes. Here, he realizes that he's just lost to Cal. And here is the moment he realizes that that door ain't big enough for the both of us. And he accepts it. Come on.
I'm the king of the world!
Of actors? You just might be, my dude. You just might be. Then we have Rose's mama. Now, in addition to watching her daughter like a hawk, she's also suffocating her. I mean, literally. No joke. Literally and figuratively, she's trying to force Rose to fit into a mold that's squeezing the life out of her. The Titanic. Despite being larger than life, the ship is very much a character in this movie, usually referred to by other characters in the first person, and its scale is used to great dramatic effect. The score of the movie really controls the mood well and became the genesis of My Heart Will Go On. Fun fact, director James Cameron didn't want the song. He famously said that you wouldn't have a pop song to promote Schindler's List. Celine Dion really didn't want to record another movie soundtrack. after Beauty and the Beast, but her manager slash husband convinced her to do it. And that's just some of the backstory to a song that's gone on to sell 18 million, you read that right, copies, win Oscars, Grammys, Golden Globes, and dominate pop culture. Go figure. If anybody doesn't want me to have $1 billion, you can go out and say so, because clearly that's how you get things, by saying you don't want to do them. Anybody? Guess not. So here's my take. For many, the romantics among us, falling in love, being in love, may be the single grandest adventure on which we will ever embark. From the chemical rush and endorphin release that sends heart pounding, pupils dilating, chest heaving, and brain well leaving, and then having that chemical concoction coalesce and become that steady, regular, rhythmic love that makes you find a particular person, place them on a pedestal, and prize them above all of the people? Well, it's just extraordinary. And extraordinarily hard to capture, but James Cameron did it, and in so doing captured the imagination of all the world. And that was the trick, you see. All the memories that we have of Titanic are of Leo screaming that he's the king of the world on the bow of that boat, and Rose treating that door like a single bed when there was clearly room for one more. But if you look a little closer, the movie Titanic is actually James Cameron's historical epic, a love letter to the ship Titanic. His handling of the architecture and the atmosphere, its grandeur and scale, and the many minute details that go into managing such a grand enterprise almost give you hope that he could rewrite the story. But alas, the boat sinks in the end.
But this ship can't sink.
She's made of iron, sir. I assure you, she can.
So he played one of the greatest tricks in cinema. He made the ship the background against which the stories of people would play out. And what vivid stories they were. A boy with nothing but the clothes on his back falls in love with a poor little rich girl who's under the thumb of a mother who's practically throwing her down the aisle into a loveless marriage. I think that the last movie that so successfully camouflaged its main story in another plot was Ben-Hur, which was really a movie about Christ. And I mean the original Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston, not the new age one with the red bottom shoes and jeans, but I digress. Titanic is impressive because it stands the test of time. It was a good story in 1997. It's a good story in 2021. The director juggles multiple themes at a measured pace, telling the story of a gigantic ship, yes, but also of two people deeply in love. And he balances the grandeur of the one with the emotion of the other perfectly. So for my money, Titanic gets 4.5 out of 5 stars. Right, I want to thank you all for tuning into the channel, for subscribing and hitting that notification button. It makes it easier for me to continue to produce this content for you. Please let me know in the comments what you thought about Titanic. Was it the greatest love story ever told? Did The Notebook take it off that throne? Was it worth $1 billion? Is it as good now as you remember it back in 1997? But otherwise, thank you for joining us. Remember, the competition is still running for the one who brings the most subscribers to the channel. So just go ahead and comment on the show if you haven't seen it. The link is in the description below. And those are my takeouts from Andy Takes on Titanic, and I am taking off, and I will see you next time.